Good day, Grade 9 students, and welcome to another video lesson in Arts 9. Before we start our lesson, let's answer these questions first, to test how much you already know about this lesson. Read the questions carefully and write your answer in your notebook. You'll only be given 5 seconds to read the question and answer. You may pause the video if you need more time. Are you ready? Let's start. Direction. Identify the name of each picture shown below, and the eras, where they should belong. Time is up. If your answer is Ramses and Egyptian, you are correct. Ball pens up. The correct answer is Venus de Milo, and Greek. Ball pens up. She is the Queen Nefertiti from Egyptian era. If your answer is the order, Roman, correct. The correct answer is Venus of Brassempouy, prehistoric. In our previous lesson, we discussed about the prehistoric, ancient Egypt, classical Greek, and Roman era paintings. You have identified which pictures below is illustrated in the given artwork, name, and give its artistic elements. The correct answer is letter D. The correct answer is letter C. If your answer is letter A, you are correct. In this item, the correct answer is letter B. If your answer is letter E, good job. Alright. I think we are ready to tackle our lesson for today, which is about prehistoric, ancient Egypt, classical Greek, and Roman era sculptures. The sculptures from prehistoric era. Materials used in sculptures vary according to region and locality. Archaeologists believed that their sculpture is a result of natural erosion, and not of human artistry. The Venus of Willendorf. Between 28,000 BC to 25,000 BCE. It is carved from limestone, with excessively heavy breast and abdomen, used as charm to ensure fertility. The Venus of Brassempouy. A sculpture of a lady with the hood. It is a fragment ivory figurine, from the Upper Paleolithic era, that realistically represents the human face and hairstyle. The sculptures, from the Egyptian era. Symbolic elements are forms, hieroglyphics, relative size, location, materials, color, actions, and gestures. The characteristic of Egyptian-era sculptures. Symbolism were heavily used to represent the gods. They were represented as composite creatures with animal heads on human bodies. Relief compositions were arranged in horizontal lines to record an event or represent an action. Most of the time the gods were shown larger than humans, the kings larger than their followers, the dead larger than the living. Empty space were filled with figures and hieroglyphics. All individual components were brought to the plane or representation and laid out like writing. The Egyptian-era sculptures. Queen Nefertiti, from 18th dynasty, 1375 to 1357. Realistic, with heavy-lidded eyes, slender neck, determined chin and pure profile under her heavy crown. And the next is, the pharaoh Menkaure and his queen, stone. 5th dynasty, 2548 to 2530 BCE. Portraits presented in rigid postures, and were simple and powerful, with very little show of private emotion. Now, let's proceed to Greek sculpture. Early Greek sculptures were tense and stiff, their bodies were hidden within enfolding robes. After 3 centuries of experiments, Greek sculptures had finally evolved, and showed all the points of human anatomy and proportion. And one of the most popular Greek sculptures was the Hellenistic style. This style manifests a preference in sculpture for more elaborate patterns, mannered arrangement of figures, and groups, and an emphasis on the representation of movement, for dramatic effects. In Greek sculpture, we have Myron the Discobolus, 450 BC. It shows an attitude of maximum tension, full of compressed energy, and about to explode in action. Let's go on to Roman sculpture. Most Roman sculptures were made of monumental terracotta. They did not attempt to compete with freestanding Greek works of history or mythology, but rather, they produced reliefs in Greek-Roman, triumphal columns with continuous narrative reliefs around them. In Roman sculpture, we have the Portnacious sarcophagus, between 180 to 190 BCE. The best known, and most elaborate of all sarcophagus, it is a box-like funeral receptacle for a dead body. Comes from the Greek word sarx, meaning flesh, and phagein meaning eat. Marcus Aurelius. And another one is, the sarcophagus Servituri, 520 BC. It is made from terracotta, length is 6'7", or 2.06 centimeters. A husband and wife are shown reclining comfortably, as if they were on a couch. Alright. We have reached the end of our lesson. We can now proceed to our activities. The activity 1. Choose 2 sculptures from different eras or period, given in the lesson. Compare and contrast the 2 using the following indicators. Copy and answer it, on your notebook. Students. Number 1, name of the sculpture. Number 2, period or era when it was created. Number 3, materials used. Number 4, the use of elements of arts in sculpture. Lines, shape, color and texture. Number 5, the distinctive characteristic of the sculpture. Compare and contrast, using similarities and differences. Let's begin with our activity number 2. Art production. How to sculpt a head, out of clay. Step 1, gather your materials. Clay, sponge, sculpting tools. Step 2, mold the clay onto the foam head. Step 3, adding facial character to your sculpture. Step 4, adding hair. Step 5, allow your sculpture to dry. And last, Step 6, share your sculpture with a loved one. Alright. We are through with our activities for today, but before we part ways, let's complete the sentences in the next slide. Students, complete the following sentences to sum up your learnings for today. 1. The dominant features in prehistoric sculptures are 2. The themes from Egyptian sculptures includes 3. The most common style of classical Greek era sculptures are 4. The Greeks are masters of. Look at the pictures. What can you say about bread art? What are the hobbies you can do during the time of quarantine or lockdown? Before you go, let's see how you've understand our lesson by answering the post-test. 1. Egyptian sculpture includes statues or figures that represents A. Hunting, fishing and farming. B. Lines and color. C. Myths. D. Pharaohs, armies and servants. The correct answer is, letter D, pharaohs, armies and servants. 2. The Greeks are masters of A. Vase making. B. Stone carving and bronze making. C. Warriors. D. Painting limestones. For this item, the right answer is B. Stone carving and bronze making. 3. This sculpture is considered as the ideal of Hellenistic beauty. A. Nefertiti. B. Venus de Milo. C. Nike. D. Venus of Willendorf. The correct answer for this item is letter B. Venus de Milo. 4. Egyptian symbolic elements were widely used such as A. Lines, shapes, and color. B. Paintings, sculpture, and architecture. C. Wood, ivory, and stones. D. Forms, hieroglyphics, size, materials, locations, and gestures. If your answer is letter D, forms, hieroglyphics, size, materials, locations, and gestures. Very good. You're correct. Number 5. Prehistoric sculpture materials vary according to A. Region and locality. B. Color and size. C. Wood and ivory. D. Animal heads and bodies. The correct answer is letter A. Region and locality. How many correct answers did you get? Very good. And that completes our lesson for today. Thank you.